As saline patches mar countless fields in the James River Valley and continue to grow, farmers have had to retreat from what may have been their best ground only a few decades ago. The saline phenomenon continues its relentless course upslope in fields, robbing the land of its productivity, draining farmers' pocketbooks, leaving many to feel helpless in the face of this tidal wave of rising waters and salts. Two brothers in Beadle County, South Dakota, decided that business as usual was not an option in the face of this threat. Hi, I'm Buz Kloot and I'm a scientist, but this is not my story. To really understand the Hamilton's journey, we have to begin here.
About mid-80s, our land at Arlington, we used to drive a two-wheel drive 165 horsepower tractor over there to farm. And one year we had a lot of rain and we're driving down a county road and we're driving through a couple inches of water. And I thought, like everybody else, well, you know what, it was a wet year. Next year the weather pattern will change and that water will go away. Well, 5 years went by, 10 years went by, and that road didn't come back above water. That road that I used to drive the two-wheel drive tractor down has 25 plus feet of water over the top of it.
I'm Scott Hamilton.
I'm Jeff Hamilton, I'm Scott's brother.
We have a mixed cropping, mixed livestock operation.
We grow corn, soybeans, alfalfa. We're integrating rye. We've messed around with some cover crops, also using some Japanese millet as a way to try to clean up some fields without chemistry.
We're actually in 5 different counties, and we try and incorporate our cow herd and cattle back through all our cropping acres.
When I was in school, I remember my dad saying, you always grow some wheat, some small grain, because you never know if you're going to get enough rain for corn. And when soybeans started coming in out here, that would have been early 80s.
Early 80s. And then that's sort of when these potholes in the state started filling with water.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was after, probably in the 90s for the most part was the biggest change, you know. So we have a cropping field that had been corn, soybeans, maybe back in time it had some wheat. Of course, with our weather change over the years, it had probably last, 15 years, we haven't raised anything there. In fact, it was getting so bad, well, the kochia weed wouldn't even grow. It was pure saline.
It would typically be wet in the spring. You'd try to
work it, disc it, or chisel it.
And after we got out of that, after we started no-tilling, you'd swing the boom out there and kill it. And so
if you
tried to disc it, you would plant it and you'd grow nothing. So you had to hope you didn't get stuck, and then you'd go in there and you'd disc it, and then you'd prevent plant it, collect your government crop insurance check. And it's like, we can't just keep doing this. Yeah, economically it might make sense, but the land was going backwards. For me, it started with the saline areas. I got tired of growing nothing.
And it might work with the crop insurance because you'll be able to collect your prevent plant for the first few years. But once you're so far into it, then you get zero production.
You know, it's a short-term gain is what it is. Short-term gain, but if we're truly stewards of the land, we can't do things from a short-term gain standpoint.
Well, I took and went and bought some saline seed mix, or it was mostly a blend of wheat grasses. Made sure it was pretty weed clean because barley foxtail would be the first thing that would start. So we sprayed it with Roundup, got it clean. I think we seeded it in June, and by that fall, I could row the grass, which I could not believe because it had not grown anything for 15 years. We were I was experimenting with just seeding a single blend of grass, and that didn't really seem to work. So we started working with a blend that we could get into the saline sodic spots, and just sort of experimented back and forth. And we came up with this blend that this seed company calls the Hamilton. The blend has some wheatgrasses in it. It has a Garrison creeping foxtail. It has a little bit of, I think they're putting a little bit of fescue in it. And then we also have some Salinity Max or saline alfalfa that can withstand saline areas. Well, when we first was working with that seed blend, I wanted to put a mix in there, so a lot of times it's difficult to get in to seed those due to being too wet or so forth and so on. And I had seeded monocultures, and if I had the wrong weather event, I would end up losing everything. So by putting multiple species in there, if it was too saline, then the wheatgrasses would take over. If it was too sodic, the Garrison creeping foxtail and maybe the fescue and reeds would take over. And with the alfalfa in there, what'll happen is the wheatgrasses will go in those saline areas. Then here comes the Salinity Max or the saline alfalfa will start following that in. And they complement each other. So if you have alfalfa there plus the grass, you have a legume growing some nitrogen that enhances your forage production. If you cut it 3 times, your first cutting will be half cool season, half alfalfa. Then your second cutting will be mostly all alfalfa. If you cut it the 3rd time, it'll sort of be half and half. But by having that together, you're covering all your bases, and the soil types determine which species grows where.
We started doing business with a guy that is very good at delineating soil types, because we are extremely variable. And when I say extremely variable, we can go from 0 to 150 bushel yield difference in corn, and we do that in 150 feet. And we do that multiple times across a half-mile pass of our field. As we've changed and new technologies that are available to us, I started variabrating my seed. I kept variabrating my fertilizer, kept looking at these areas, and we started planting these saline areas back to the Hamilton blend 3, 4, 5 acres at a time. And since 2016, probably 2 years ago, we'd probably done 150 acres at that time. We've done more since. The first step in recovering is, first of all, you have to make a change. And the change that was the easiest to make for us is to stop spraying those areas.
Well, yeah, and you have to change your attitude. You have to change your mindset. I do all the spraying, so you have to make sure you save those spaces or don't spray them, and be cognizant of your wind and so forth, and care and try,
In some fields, we're in the 3rd year of not spraying the sloughs. The rye is a good way to amend that soil.
And it helps with your weed control.
Yeah, Japanese millet will grow into the salinity areas further than the rye will. Both of those plants have a phenomenal root system on them. Going back to that kochia plant, the areas that didn't grow kochia, the next step when you stop spraying it is we'll have a stunted kochia plant. It'll be a grayish color, and it gets about this tall and never really changes. Well, next year, you'll turn that kochia plant, some of those areas will turn into a dark green kochia.
Well, part of that is you got to have those plant species there that are putting roots down, that are putting exudates down, which create your biology in your soil or your livestock in your soil. Then you can start doing things.
if we just get out of Mother Nature's way, she will fix herself. I'm convinced of that. We're in the process of trying to actually prove that.
If we can get kochia growing, we can utilize livestock to harvest kochia. Actually, cattle really, at a vegetative state, really like kochia. And kochia is your first step of maybe barley foxtail. Livestock don't like that so much, but barley foxtail might provide a cover for seeding, interseeding your grass seed into. You know, as livestock and crop farmers, hay is a crop. And a lot of people, strictly crop farming, don't consider hay a crop. And so you have to sort of change your mental capacity. And we're always looking for forage. In those areas, well, where we've had the Hamilton, we're doing 3 to 3.5 ton an acre on acres that weren't producing anything. But the other thing is when we're seeding this grass blend, is we make the mistake of just going to the edge of the salt. Actually, you need to make 3 runs into the upland. By doing that saline place will fill in faster than just concentrating on it. So if you can take your good land and sacrifice 3 passes with a drill, that'll enhance your recovery a lot more. So if we can get these plant species established in the upland and they're more mature, they'll handle the higher salt levels and saline levels, and then that way our roots will just start leading the others in there.
From a wildlife species standpoint, and it takes all the pressure out of it, because if he's spraying it, where are our trouble weeds? They're growing in the areas where we can't grow a crop.
Well, and even going back to the hunting or wildlife, you know, it's tough hunting in a standing cornfield, especially on 30-inch rows. What's really great is if you can push them out of the cornfield into these saline spots that we've got this perennial grass, and you have a great deer hunt or a great pheasant hunt, you know, or grouse or whatever. You know, that's another thing, is those saline areas that are put to plant species sort of become our pollinators, you know, so they have bugs, which pheasants like, or other game. You know, there's another species of animals or insects that complement our whole biology, you know.
You know, you can have the best of both worlds. You can have something that you can, the cattle will like. And for me, the pheasant hunting and the hay is important, but really for me, it became a joy of watching a piece of soil that did not grow anything. It would not grow a corn plant. It would not grow a soybean plant.
Wouldn't grow a kochia weed.
And yes, and now we're growing very desirable plants. We did this without external fertilizer being used, and we did it without chemical, because there isn't a chemical we can spray on. You manage it by haying it. You can manage it by grazing it. There's better ways to do it than, hey, my planter's this big and I want a square field.
I hope the Hamilton story has helped you view salinity differently. The good news is that South Dakota has the expertise to turn these acres around using natural systems. But this will take some thought, some time, and some planning. Visit this video description below for more information. And remember, like planting a tree, the best time to address salinity was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. From Growing Resilience, I'm Buz Kloot. So long.